Hello, everyone. This is Adrian with imaet, and today we are going to talk about the assessment panel. So, the assessment panel can be found under this wellness category, and we're going to click into it. And right now, we actually pre-ran this. So, we had come in here, we had clicked the bioscan, we let it run, and then these are the results we got. So, we're going to talk about what each part of this panel is today. The first part is the main panel where it kind of gives you a very good overview of how the person is doing from an energetic perspective. So it kind of goes through different criteria, which are listed, and ranks them from a scale of 0 to 100 as to how well they're reacting or not reacting. And with most panels in the imaet system, the goal is to be around like 50. So the closer you are to 50, the better. It means it's more in balance. Things at the high end or the low end, so closer to 100 or 0, are usually the more out of balance they are. The other things you see on this panel, you got quick links. So these are just different buttons that will jump you to different panels. So if you click on it, it would bring you into that particular panel. And as I said, when I had entered here earlier today, I had already hit the bioscan panel, which is going to go through and rank each of these after it scans you. And with any panel in the imaet, there's a panel info button. So when you click on it, it gives you a little bit more information about what's going on with that panel. So let's look at the results. So the highs are not really high in this case. We've got 54, which is the blood sugar balance. We have a 47, which is the acid, and we have a 45. So there's really no concern from the high perspective of things being like overly active. But if we look at the low end, we have the environmental exposures, we have bones, we have predispositions, toxicity, bacteria, infections. So these are all kind of ranking really low and definitely means there's probably room for improvement. Maybe this person needs a little bit of support in those areas. So the way you can go about this is you're trying to get a high level overview of what could potentially be affecting the person and where you could potentially make some impact back to them. So if you wanted to just look at things that are very similar in nature, the environmental exposure with the detox could be an area. If you look at toxicity, which is number 5, again, these uses the same panels, and you can tell because the panels are in green below it. So maybe that's another area. The one right below it is food poisoning detox. We're going to start with the detox because that's kind of where some of the low numbers are falling into, and that might be a good first step. So the other thing I'm going to mention is that the panels may change based on the version of software you have. So maybe you don't have all these panels listed. The version of my software does, but yours may not. So you're going to work with what you have. And in this case, we're going to go to the detox panel. And again, I had come in here already and run these to get the results. So we're not waiting for this to run. We're just kind of looking at the results. When you come in here the first time, all these numbers would be blank. So you would click the bioscan for this category, and this category, and then it would give you these numbers. So the thing that really stood out to me is if you remember back on the assessment panel before we came in here, we were looking for the environmental exposure. We had also talked about the food poisoning potentially as one, some bacteria, infection, inflammation, and toxicity. And the thing that really jumps out to me when you look at this is the mycotoxins rank as 100. So that's a fungus that could be found on food. And again, on these panels, you want to look for things that are high or low. So we have 100 there. We have 5 as a virus. So some stuff there. Those are probably the big ones that stood out from this panel. So the cool part about this panel, unlike the assessment panel, is you can do feedbacks on it. So what I would probably do, you also have fungus here, is probably maybe do the mycotoxin and the fungi as feedbacks on this panel. Maybe the virus. But as a person who's coming into this is kind of new, you probably only want to do like max 3 things on here. So to do a feedback, I would click on this 100 right here. I would set a time, can set it up to maybe like 5, 10 minutes to get started and hit the feedback button. And then it would go through and do the feedback. Now the harmonization number, which will pop up at the end, will tell you how much it has been rectified. You're trying to get that over 90%. So you might want to do one session, do it for 5 minutes, and then see if it's like, if the harmonization's like still in the 60s, then probably do another 5 minutes to get it up higher and try to aim for 90%. So that's kind of one thing that you could see from this panel is that, related to what you had found in the assessment panel, do things kind of make sense? And in this case, yes, um, mycotoxins, fungus, and viruses. So let's go back to the assessment panel. So the other panel I did scan ahead of time was the allergen panel. So again, these are the quick links. I'm going to jump to the allergen panel from here. And interesting enough, these are the results that came back. And one of the top ones, again, is a virus. We've seen that as potentially area. But this wrinkle mold mix C, which again is kind of in the mold category, which has been coming up across the other 2 panels, probably I would do a feedback on that for sure. And then I would look through and see if there's some other things that kind of made sense. Interesting enough, and I didn't notice the first time, but bone marrow is up here. So maybe including that because, again, bones, which we were just in, seems to be a problem. So looking for commonalities, the wrinkle mold mixy, the bone marrow, cartilage, again, part of the bone system. And then maybe some of these bacteria viruses could potentially be candidates. And this one right here, 1854, another fungus. So all you're kind of doing is looking to see what seems to make sense from an overall picture and to put them together. If you want to right click on here, it brings up the basket. So this one, we talked about potentially bone marrow and cartilage. So probably up to 10, set the time. Again, maybe 10 minutes to start. Check the harmonization number when it's done. Oh, and definitely click quick cycle before you do feedback. So 10 minutes, quick cycle feedback. And then after it's run, check the harmonization. You want to go through each of these and make sure they're about 90 or more. So clicking one by one and checking out what the harmonization number would be. And then doing it again if it's needed. So again, if we go back to the assessment panel, so we covered kind of the environmental exposure and even some of the viruses that were coming up. The food poisoning was a little bit hit with the detox, the toxicity. And at this point, if I had done the detox page and did up to 3 feedback and did an allergen panel with up to about 10 different things in there, I probably would have called it for the day. That would have been probably an appropriate place to end because again, you don't want to overwhelm the body. You're spend hours at a time on this in one sitting. Body constantly changes and it needs to get some of this information and have it incorporated. So by doing that type of feedback, focusing on those areas, you seem to have hit some of the major areas that were shown on this page. And then you want to come in another day, maybe like, a couple days later, a week later, again, run this, see what things are popping up and look for common threads across the different panels. So with that, that's an overview of how you can use the assessment panel, using this as a feeder into different panels and looking for similarities. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us, and thanks for watching.